So lately, Hillary Clinton has been absolutely everywhere in an attempt to promote her new book, What Happened. I mean, she's been on The View, she's been on CNN, she's been on MSNBC, she's been on CBS, she's been on My Nightmares, she's been everywhere, she's been making the rounds, and ultimately, in promoting and writing this book, she is trying to figure out, as she puts it,
what happened? Yeah. What happened, and how did it happen, and what could I have done differently, or what could have happened that didn't happen?
Well, where do we start? I mean, you rigged the primaries, shunned your own base, and decided to court Republican voters instead of actual progressives. But I don't even have to get into all of that again, because throughout the course of the last couple of weeks, you know, when you look at a series of interviews that she's done, I mean, it becomes very clear exactly what happened. You happened, Hillary Clinton. Your hubris and entitlement and thinking that you were owed the White House is exactly why voters rejected you.
Senator Sanders, obviously he has a strong voice now in the Democratic Party. He comes under a lot of criticism from you in the book. What political sin did he commit other than choosing to run against you?
Well, it's not the political sin he committed. It was the failure to move quickly to unify the party and his supporters. And I know a little bit about this.
After it was clear that he wasn't going to
it was clear I was going to be the nominee like in March or April. It was beyond any doubt in June. And in 2008, we ran a much closer, tougher primary contest between President Obama and myself. It was really close. And I immediately endorsed him. And I went to work for him. I spent countless hours, Anderson, convincing my supporters who felt equally aggrieved that they had to support Barack Obama. I was still arguing with big rooms of supporters at the Denver convention. I didn't get that same, respect and reciprocity from Senator Sanders or from his supporters. They're still, incredibly divisive. And I'm interested in what he can do to help elect Democrats. He's not a Democrat. He makes that clear.
She must have not gotten the memo that that's not how politics works. That's not how any of this works. You are the one who's supposed to win us over. And after you rigged the primaries and spit in the faces of every single progressive that supported Bernie Sanders, he still did everything he possibly could to get you to win, but you still lost. And that was your fault. Your job was to win us over. In fact, when Rachel Maddow gave you the chance to reach out to Bernie Sanders supporters, this is what you said.
I am winning.
I am winning.
What a great way to win us over, right? I mean, she is basically implying there with that short clip that we have no choice but to support her. Otherwise, we're going to get a monster like Donald Trump that she propped up with her Pied Piper strategy. That's basically what she's saying here. I'm winning. You have no choice but to support me. That's what she said. And yet, according to Hillary Clinton, we're the ones that are being divisive because we're angry that she rigged the primary against the candidate that ultimately would have defeated Donald Trump. But we're divisive. Really, Hillary? We're the ones that are divisive? But I mean, she's not done here yet, attacking Bernie Sanders and trying to smear his supporters because she did it yet again.
Why did you go there, reopening a barely healed wound in your own party? Frankly, one that's stepped on your own headlines.
Oh, I don't agree with that. I wanted to tell what happened, and the primary was part of what happened. I won a landslide victory in the primary.
Okay, I've got to stop it right here. This is bullshit. It wasn't a landslide, and someone with no name recognition almost defeated you in a rigged primary, but continue.
I know what it's like to win, and I know what it's like to lose. And when I lost to Barack Obama, I immediately turned around. I endorsed him. I worked for him. I convinced my supporters to vote for him. I didn't get the same respect from my primary opponent. And a lot of his supporters continue to harass and, really go after my supporters all the time. And that feeds in, I think, to the whole sexism and misogyny part of this campaign. I had large groups of supporters who had to be private because if they lifted their head up online, if they were, responding on a YouTube comment chain or on Twitter to something, they were just attacked, and the attacks were so sexist about, well, you're supporting a woman because you're a woman, and it just never really got to the
These
facts.
are the Bernie bros, so
well, yes, right? And they're still out there, and I also make the point, look,
Why give them material? Why not let them concentrate on the Trump administration?
Well, I'm concentrating on the Trump administration, and I am proud to be a Democrat. I've been a Democrat for decades. I have supported Democrats. I've worked for Democrats. Bernie's not a Democrat, and that's not a slam. That's what he says himself. And I think a lot of what he churned up in the primary campaign was very hurtful in the general election against me. And I see him doing the same thing. I see him, with his supporters. He doesn't disown the things they say about, some of my favorite Democrats, people like Kamala Harris, who is out there speaking up and speaking out, and she's being attacked from the left. Enough. If you don't want to support Democrats, then go somewhere else. But if you are willing to work with us, we're going to have disagreements. We're going to be pushing and pulling to try to get to the right solutions. I've been for universal health care coverage my entire adult life. I've worked to achieve it. And we got closer than we ever had with the Affordable Care Act. I was defending it. He wanted to start over. We were at 90% coverage. I thought that was significant. So I'm not going to step back from telling my truth, what I believe happened. And other people can, write their own books and make their own comments.
She cannot stop lying. She cannot stop lying. First of all, the Affordable Care Act was not single payer. It was a Republican healthcare plan, hence why we're all not happy about it. Hence why it's not working, because Republican ideas don't work. Second of all, she references the attacks that progressives are launching against Kamala Harris, when really all we're asking is how we can trust her and why we should trust her when she is courting millionaire donors that supported Hillary Clinton, that bought off Hillary Clinton. But that's an attack, according to Hillary Clinton, because we said the same thing about her. How can we trust that you're going to look out for us if you're raising millions upon millions of dollars from Wall Street? And to her, that's an attack, when really that's just a legitimate criticism. And she states here, we're attacking her supporters because we said that they were only supporting Hillary Clinton because she's a woman. Now, remind me again what her slogan was? Oh, that's right. It was, I'm with her. You wanted to make this about gender, Hillary Clinton, so that way when valid criticisms inevitably came up about you, you could just chalk it up to sexism and say that we're misogynistic, and that's why we are questioning you and whether or not you would represent us. That's what this is about. You wanted to make this about your gender, Hillary Clinton. You're the one who wanted to do that. And she pretends like her antagonistic supporters were the victims of harassment by Bernie bros, when a quantitative analysis revealed that Bernie supporters were some of the least aggressive online. Hillary supporters were actually the second most aggressive, with Trump coming in first. So Democrats like you and your friend Debbie Wasserman Schultz pretended like we were aggressive and were throwing chairs at conventions because you wanted to demonize us, because you had no way to respond to the legitimate criticisms that we brought up about you. Now, Bernie Sanders took the time to respond to all of Hillary Clinton's nonsense in what I think is a really powerful way.
I was arguing with my supporters at the Denver convention in 2008 about why they had to quit complaining that I didn't win and get out and support Barack Obama. And I didn't get that respect from him and his supporters.
As you know, you've probably seen at least some excerpts of the book. I don't know if you've fully read it yet, but this is a consistent theme. She believes you didn't work hard enough to bring your supporters to the fold the way she did in 08, which is what she's pointing there. And if anything, your supporters may have undermined her candidacy in the general election. Do you accept that criticism?
Wow. No, I really don't. And I look, Chuck, right now we're focusing on health care, we're focusing on the doctor issue, we're focusing on infrastructure, high cost of prescription drugs. I don't think it's useful to go backwards. I think we've got to go forwards. But let me just say this. I worked as hard as I could. After endorsing Hillary Clinton, I went all over this country. And I would remind people, people say, well, not everybody who voted for Bernie ended up voting for Hillary. No kidding. That's what happens in politics. If my memory is correct, in 2008, something like 24% of the people who voted for Hillary Clinton in the primaries ended up voting for John McCain. That's the nature of politics. Most people, are not rigidly Democrats or Republicans. They vote where they want. I worked as hard as I could to see that Hillary Clinton would be elected president.
So everything that Bernie Sanders said right there is 100% true, and in continuing to blame everyone else for her mistakes, Hillary Clinton isn't actually wanting to figure out exactly, as she put it, what happened.
And what could I have done differently, or what could have happened that didn't happen.
She doesn't care about that. Hillary Clinton has an agenda. Her agenda is to break down Bernie Sanders and tear down everything that he's doing. And people don't necessarily think that this is the case, because in a recent interview, she said that she's done being a politician.
Is your political career over?
Yes. As an active politician, it's over.
You will never be a candidate for office?
I am done with being a candidate, but I am not done with politics, because I literally believe that our country's future is at stake.
So I'm relieved that she's done being a politician, but that last line she said there was really important. She's not done with politics, and I think that, honestly, as someone who is working from behind the scenes, she could do more damage to the progressive movement than if she were actually just running, if she were a politician, because as progressives, we could choose not to vote for her, but as someone who has insider influence on the Democratic Party, I mean, she could do a lot more. And she's making it clear that she is going to ensure that Bernie Sanders' influence on the Democratic Party is diminished, because as this Politico article puts it, she doesn't want him getting the keys to the Democratic Party. And the problem is that they're actually listening to her, because as you might have heard recently, California is actually trying to move up their 2020 primary on the schedule in order to give an establishment candidate like Kamala Harris, who's from the state of California, an advantage over Bernie Sanders, who most likely will be running. So in other words, they're literally already planning to try to rig the primary again. And it's not just that she's trying to hurt Bernie Sanders and stop him from taking any sort of power in the Democratic Party. She's not just trying to hurt him electorally, but she's also trying to do what she can to undermine his policy goals, including criticizing his Medicare for All bill, telling Ezra Klein of Vox, quote, "As you might remember, during the campaign, he introduced a single-payer bill every year he was in Congress, and when somebody finally read it, he couldn't explain it and couldn't really tell people how much it was going to cost." So Hillary Clinton might not be running again, but she still holds an incredible amount of sway within the Democratic Party. And really, you know, what she's doing with her influence is becoming an obstacle to progress. Because in trying to tear down Bernie Sanders when he's fighting for policies that we want him to fight for, that's really devastating. And look, I mentioned before how I hate talking about Hillary Clinton. It feels like we're just stuck in this time loop where every day we wake up, it's the 2016 Democratic primaries, where we are forced to come out and debunk all of her arbitrary smears and attacks on Bernie Sanders and his supporters. Like, it feels like she's personally impugning my character, at least. I know that a lot of you feel the same way too. So if Hillary Clinton really does care about the country, which is why she's staying in politics, and she's not just promoting this book tour for narcissistic reasons, then she should allow Bernie Sanders to get the keys to the Democratic Party, because his policies are what ultimately will defeat right-wing pseudo-populism in Donald Trump. But she doesn't care. This is about influence. This is about power. It's never been about helping the country for Hillary Clinton. So, I mean, what she's saying, I hate that I even have to still talk about Hillary Clinton, but so long as she's going to espouse this misinformation and attack Bernie Sanders when he is fighting for one of the most important battles in American history, Medicare for All, we have to come out and defend Bernie Sanders from her attacks, because it's wrong. So Hillary Clinton is really hurting the party, and she's hurting all of us, you know, by proxy of hurting the Democratic Party. So she's just so selfish, and she surrounds herself by yes men and yes women, and everything that she does, even if it's bad, they just reinforce all of her ideas as good ideas, when she has no interest in talking with ordinary Americans and figuring out what we want and what we care about. She doesn't care. She only cares about herself and her power, which is why even if she's not going to be running for political office, she's still staying involved with Democratic Party politics. She wants a say. And look, let's be honest here, not to be too cynical, but she raised a lot of money in 2016, and she wants to make sure that she delivers to all of her donors in one way or another. So by staying in the Democratic Party and making sure that they remain corporatist, that's one way that she can still try to deliver to her corporate donors by proxy of the Democratic Party. So that's also what this is about. So Hillary Clinton is an incredibly divisive figure. As she says Bernie and his supporters are divisive, she's divisive, and worse is that she's really hurting the country. So she has to stop. I'm not saying that she doesn't have the right to speak, but in attacking Bernie Sanders, she doesn't care. You know, she doesn't care about this country. She only cares about herself. And it's so disheartening and just downright disgusting.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.